Well, 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 look who decided to show up to the party. That's right, the Bambu A1 has finally arrived, and during this unboxing, I'll be talking to you about why exactly I chose the A1 versus potentially getting another X1C or a P-Series printer. All right, let's get started. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my X1C, and would I buy another one? I think for the purpose I need the X1C, I really don't need another one for that purpose. When it comes to growing a print farm, what I need are machines that are consistent and dependable and are economical. Obviously, if you can buy a sub $400 256 by 256 printer and it gets the job done daily and consistently, well, that's what matters. Multicolor for my particular setup isn't really that important. I will print mostly single color items because I do more practical prints. So very rarely are those multicolor. And if they are, they're multicolor with a plan. So it's either the first or the last layers that secondary color is involved. So even an AMS is not a necessity for me. Now, the A1 versus one of the P-Series printers. Now, when I really started looking into the A1, one thing I noticed is that it had hardened extruder gears, and that's not something the P-Series printers can say they have. Now, the P-Series printers obviously have a huge advantage as far as enclosed printers, but if I'm printing PETG and PLA primarily, they really don't benefit from an enclosed printer. As long as you can keep control of the temperature in your environment, you're probably in pretty good shape. Now, I don't necessarily love the fact that the A1 is a bed slinger. I'd rather prefer a Core XY. But if you look at the price, you could nearly get two A1s for the price that you would pay for a P1S. So with that in mind, and again, our focus is on growth. Well, obviously, I can grow my farm a lot faster if I'm paying half as much for the printer. And this is all contingent on the fact that obviously the printer needs to be dependable, and the A1 has proven itself to be exactly that, without question. Another reason I chose the A1 is the ease of nozzle changes. If you have a X or P series printer, you know that even though the nozzle change is easy, it's not as easy as a nozzle change in the A1. The A1 is super simple to swap out between a 0.4 and a 0.6 nozzle, and that is huge for me in a print farm situation. If I'm printing more practical prints that are large, I can swap in a 0.6 nozzle and get those jobs done faster, and the change is only a few seconds versus taking out screws and unplugging things. So advantage to the A1 there also. Again, the focus here is getting things done efficiently, fast, and dependably. And obviously, the A1 has proven itself to do all those things. Now, would I consider printers like a Prusa or some Creality printers? I might, honestly, but I don't have any experience with those. And when you have a budget that says you can only spend so much, then you have to spend your money where it is most likely going to deliver what you need. And because of that, the choice was the A1. When I first got back into 3D printing, I actually bought an A1 Mini, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned that. But when I had an Ender, and the Ender was a nightmare, and I never could get it to print right, and all I ever did was work on it. So I sold that printer, just got rid of it. It made me crazy. And I probably didn't touch a 3D printer again for a couple years probably. So I bought the A1 Mini shortly after it came out and absolutely fell in love with it. How it worked, how quickly it was amazing. It wasn't too long after that, I just happened to be in Chicago visiting some friends, and there was a Micro Center. Now, initially my thought was I wasn't going to get an X1C because it was so much bigger than the Mini, and I really didn't have the room. And then I walked into Micro Center, and there was an X1C, and its footprint really wasn't that much bigger. So the temptation got me, and I purchased it. Now, I ended up giving my A1 Mini to a friend of mine. In hindsight, I probably should have kept it, but it got me familiar with that platform. So when it time to get a bigger printer, the A1 made a lot of sense with my experience with the A1 Mini. Now, because I started with the A1 Mini, my process of kind of falling in love again with the idea of 3D printing was associated with the sound. And I was so disappointed when I bought my X1C and it didn't play the music. So it's going to take a little while to go through the homing process, but it needs to be in its finished location for it to do this, with the build plate in place. Pretty much everything in place, that way the printer can go through these tests. It'll level and do a lot of the motor noise cancellation tests. It does take a little while. Waiting on the calibration process can be tedious. Plus, then I'll have to wait for the nozzle to cool down so I can swap in my 0.6. And the first thing I've got to First thing I got to print is something to catch the poop in. So I've already got one of those downloaded, so its first print won't be a benchy. It'll be a poopy catcher. So the first thing I'm going to do, post setup, everything's done, it's ready to go. Haven't loaded any filament in yet, but the first thing I want to do is change out this nozzle. So the factory is a 0.4, and for my purpose, I definitely would prefer a 0.6 nozzle. I keep a 0.4 in the X1C for more detailed prints, but this machine will be primarily printing items that I sell. And I really don't do like wiggly bits or anything interesting. So we're going to shut the printer off, remove the face, and I've never done this on an A1 before, so I'm probably going to look real awkward doing it. All right, so we popped that off. Now what? That's a good question. Let's raise this up. We just pop this off. All right, let's pop this guy off. See what happens. All right, so now we've got a clip. Now, if you're an X or a P series owner, you're going to be super jealous. Yeah, that's it. 0.4 nozzle out, no screws. It's ridiculous. It's so amazing. Here's our 0.6 nozzle. So with the clips open, I guess we just stick it in there like so. Make sure it gets square up against that. So that's it. Now our 0.6 nozzle is installed. I wonder how many people run without the rubber boot. I don't know. I'll put it back on. Looks fancy. But I may not keep it, to be honest with you. Especially if I start seeing... I've seen some people where they've had some problems with like filament gumming up on it. So if I start having any kind of issue whatsoever, I'll just get rid of it. I don't care nothing about that. I just need it to print. I don't care what it looks like. All right, so make sure you go into the hardware settings in the slicer and be sure to let it know that your printer now has a 0.6 nozzle. because if you don't, it will remind you that there's a problem. All right, the music. Now we're ready. I'm gonna get ready to send over the file to print the poop catcher, and I think I actually have a deflector. That way it shoots the poop and deflects it down into, because I really don't want it all gathering down here on the underneath.
Pressure's building in the nozzle's core. Flow rate steady, but I'm wanting more. Micron thin, the layers rise, slicing through the limits, precision in my eyes, filament feeding, the rhythms in sync. G-code whispers what the future will bring. Heat bed humming, adhesions tight. Every pass is perfect, breaking through the night. The sea hops climbing, but the bridge won't fail.
So instead of doing the poop catcher, which the reality of it is I won't be doing that many filament changes, and the majority of the time I'll be right here when the poop changes. So doesn't even make sense. So I did print out this nice deflector that I found on Maker World, and this just kind of prevents it from being chucked out over the edge and down into the abyss, and forces it to drop right here where I can pick it up and throw it in the garbage. So done deal. A1 is set up and running, 0.6 nozzle installed, gray PET G's in place, ready to work. All right, guys, well, that's it. We're all done. The A1 is set up and ready to begin filling orders for us. Hopefully they give you some perspective on why I chose the A1. Not saying that there are other brands out there that probably, you know, are just as good as the A1 and could be in the same price range as the A1, to be honest. But my line of thinking tends to be, when you get into a certain ecosystem, you tend to stay in that ecosystem. You'll notice, guys, that their first printer was a Prusa, then every printer after that tends to be a Prusa. And this situation's probably no different, to be honest. All right, guys, well, I hope you liked the video. If you have any questions at all, hit me up in the comments, and I'll be glad to get back to you. All right, later.